Yes.
Where are we?
Here.
Why are we here? Not entirely clear. We are misfits thrust into existence by random chance, with no hints at all as to how we're supposed to make sense of it all. It's immensely bizarre. Here we are.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Here We Are podcast. I am just getting done with a odd, interesting science conference meeting, a zombie apocalypse medicine meeting, and where I got to have a fun way of doing science communication through the lens of various like apocalypse scenarios and types of skills that we'll need in the end times, and got to meet all sorts of wonderful new friends, including my brand new friend Tamas David Barrett joining me today. Tamas, tell people about yourself and your research.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm a behavioral scientist, but before that, I'd just like to add something about this conference, because it's a conference about zombies.
Yeah.
And which has, I'm not sure whether you picked that bit up, it has this wonderful effect that all the idiots in academia who need to have a fancy name to the conference can't come. So the quality of the conversation was amazing, because most people, not many people who otherwise you wouldn't really want to meet at the conference,
Right.
are just not here.
Right. All the people that are into the jargony little.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called zombies. Actually, it's amazing science that was going on, but yeah.
I'm going to, we're sounding great, so I'm going to take these off for the look, because look at this beautiful background and everything that we have here. So tell people about yourself, tell people about your work, your background.
Yeah, so I am an interdisciplinary scholar, which means it's not really interdisciplinary. Difficult to pin down. Rather than the methods, I am pinned down by the question. So I think about the evolutionary origins of the way our species and sometimes other species form social networks, and then how we regulate those social networks. So our species, obviously we are a super social ape. We build large groups, and in these large groups, the structure of the group matters. And that structure is the social network. We have an inherited ability and drive to build these social networks. And then part inherited, probably not quite clear, but definitely learned, drive to regulate our social networks, to change the structure. Yeah, so if I go, Shane, we're having a dinner party tonight. Do you want to come over?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because there's going to be there, Kate, and you and Kate are going to get on like a house on fire. And
right.
I'm really, right now, when I'm inviting you, I'm engineering the social network around me.
Right.
So I'm asking you basically to drop another friend, and for Kate to drop another friend, so that my social network gets more integrated.
Yeah.
We do this all the time.
Okay, so now you've built this coalition of people. I don't even know this Kate person, but I have all of these amazing comedic and science communication skills that is valuable for you to network with. And Kate,
yeah, no, it's not necessarily the skills that I'm after in this case.
Okay,
what I'm after is a more integrated, interconnected personal social network.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily, although, I mean, amazing science communication.
I have so much to add to your social network.
But it's not who is in the network. We regulate that as well, and we engineer that as well. It's what is the interconnectedness of people in our social network. If it's more interconnected, then we are going to feel safer. We are going to be more cooperative. Others are going to be more cooperative. There's going to be more trust. So a lot of times when people get lonely in these modern societies, what happens is that they have enough social connections, friends, but the social connections are not connected to each other enough.
Their friends aren't friends with one another.
Exactly.
So Kate and I becoming friends is going to, now that we're friends, we're going to in our friendship kind of have you in mind a little bit more.
Have me in mind, but also because there's going to be a close triangle, everybody is going to be more cooperative.
Okay.
Because there's a little space to cheat on the other or free ride on the other. We are much less inclined to do that when there's a lot of shared friends, yeah? Because friends gossip. Probably this is one of the main functions of gossip. Friends gossip, so I don't want to be the subject of a negative gossip. I'm going to be excluded. Everybody will think that I'm a cheater, so they will not play nice with me. And so this is why the trust is coming from a highly interconnected network, because everybody will play safe, play nice.
I see.
And that's I feel right. I'm safe, socially safe. Yeah. If we are separated into a lot of different connections, but they're not connected to each other, then they might still sort of play nice because there's the law or some rules, but not because of this particular social network structure. So we feel lonely. So a lot of urban loneliness, a lot of old age loneliness is at the core of the lack of interconnectedness of the social network.
So if I'm just friends with you and you have a party and I don't show up with anything, but I drink all of your beer or wine or whatever and then leave, that's like a one-off thing. But if I'm also like friends with Kate and I do this when she has a party as well, and then like you guys kind of talk and they're like, hey, have you noticed that when Shane comes over, he never actually brings anything and he just drinks all of our wine and stuff, and so because we're so interconnected, there's just, we all kind of have to adhere to a higher social standard, sort of, or
because we are all interconnected. This news that Shane is a free rider will go around.
Okay.
And at one point, Shane will not get invited.
Right.
And Shane will probably not understand why he's not invited, because it's going so well. I show up, there's all this.
They're always giving me all this wine. I expected nothing in return. I take it, I leave. It's a great friendship. Yeah.
I think many of us know people.
A little closer.
Many of us know people like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes the actual person doesn't really know, or maybe not entirely aware of the norm violation and the image, the reputation that is happening around them. Because maybe they haven't learned this skill. Yeah? But anyway, we monitor this. Another way of seeing how we monitor, imagine that you talk to an old friend and after a year, you pick up the phone and say, hey, what's going on with you? And then you're going to recount to each other the last year's events, breakups, new loves, jobs, whatever. Yeah? At one point, you sort of run out of this, both of you. And what happens then? Then you will start going down the shared friends list. How about Jack? Have you heard about Jack? No, really? Did he do that? So we actually update ourselves. And in that, we update not only that whatever was happening with Jack, we update ourselves, we reinforce that we have Jack in between us. Yeah, we have all these others who connect us. So we sort of reinforce our assessment of each other of being connected in many different ways. And that automatically triggers cooperative behavior, lack of becoming a free rider. Yeah.
And you're kind of, so you're looking at these networks and sort of mathematically modeling them.
Yeah. So what happened to humanity the last 200-300 years is that the number of children born in a family has decreased. And with that, the available family members, and not necessarily only siblings, but cousins, second-degree cousins, in-laws, these available family members, they were just not born because the family sizes are small. And when they're not born, the network around us changes because friendship networks are less likely to be interconnected than kinship networks.
Right.
And then plus friendship network, even if they are interconnected, you have to work on it. Yeah, a kin network is given to you. You're born into it. Some of us are fleeing from it, but
so if we're brothers, it's just a given. We're brothers for life, and if Kate's our sister, then we have this kind of given interconnected network that we don't really even need to think so much about, like, is this person cheating? Are they taking advantage? There's more of this kind of kinship altruism.
There's a kinship, but the important thing here is that the kinship altruism is not necessarily because we are related to each other. It's there for siblings it is. But beyond siblings to cousins, it is there because we happen to be a very highly interconnected kin network. And that is what changes when we shift to friendship-based societies. So suddenly we
just simply because more mutual people in the network know this cousin of yours.
Exactly. Because they are cousins as well.
Right, because so now me, you, and Kate all know this same cousin. They know us. Okay.
Exactly. And these are fixed for us for life. So not everybody in traditional societies, not everybody is a relative. About 3/4 of an average hunter-gatherer's personal social network, 2/3, 3/4 have some kind of tag of relative, and then the others are non-relative friends. So it's not that hunter-gatherers don't have friends. It's just in these societies, friendship is 90%, 95%. And those networks are very different networks. Very similar, not only falling fertility, so falling family size, but urbanization, moving into cities has a similar effect. Migration, when you migrate away from the others, has a similar effect. Deadly wars and epidemics have similar effects. And when that happens, we are challenged, because suddenly the interconnectedness drops, and with the dropping interconnectedness, cooperation is not obvious, free riding a bit more often present, trust goes down, and we feel awful. Yeah, because we are the kind of social beings who like living in a highly interconnected social network when we are loved. And so it's super interesting. So we understand a little bit about where kin networks, friendship networks come from. We understand a little bit about how these build up in a structure. And then we also suddenly have a new understanding about where law comes from, where crime comes from.
Wait, where what comes from?
Law.
Law. Okay. So English is your fourth language, right? And you still speak it better than me. But there's a couple words here and there, like okay, law. But I'm from Wisconsin, so when I say things, people say, "Wait, what was that? Did you just say wash?"
My kids make fun of me. My kids' first language is English, and they make fun of me because there are some things I don't hear. So there's the wooden rack on which you pack things when you are packaging things, the pallet, and the painter's palette, and the painter's palette.
Yep.
Yeah. So I can't hear the difference between this. So if you say palette and palette, I can't hear the difference. Yeah. So there are some things that are, sure, for everybody, these exist,
right.
But anyway, so the side comments.
Yeah. So in these disconnected in like metro areas and things where these connections aren't a given, because even though there's far more people around, they're more transient, passing kind of connections, and just because you're making a new friend on the street, that person doesn't necessarily know all of your other network, and
Yeah.
And so because of this increases the need for things like laws?
Yeah. So law, if you think about what in this framing, what law is.
You say it anyway. I didn't mean to get you in your head. I just wanted clarity.
So what law is, what legal systems are.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, what it does, it takes away the strategic element of cooperation.
Okay.
Yeah. So when two friends cooperate with each other, it has a strategic nature. I don't cheat you, you don't cheat me. I build up a reputation by not cheating you. I build up a reputation in the simplest of network, because there are just two nodes and one edge, one relationship. Yeah. In a larger network, I build up a cooperative reputation among many, a general network reputation. Yeah. And all of these are strategic cooperation, and we evolved to have strategic cooperation. And one of the bypasses is probably that we like each other. Yeah. So I don't have to think about cheating Shane or not. We just spend time together. We hang in the hot tub and the pool together. We are friends. Yeah. We are friends. I don't cheat my friends. Yeah. So when we interact with each other, not because of this strategic interaction, but because I would be punished by the law if I was not interacting with you. It's not this ungulates. So there are some behavior in which they are just they do stuff. Let's say a lot of ungulate zebras will do stuff that they do for themselves, but not as it happens to be good for the other. Yeah. So this biologists call this a mutualism. So legal systems turns us from a strategically cooperating species. It's almost like grazing animals. Yeah. And that is not something that we understood until, or at least I understood, until we had this framing of what happens to the social network. Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, I'm curious because I've often thought, when I think about something like love, which is what I thought maybe I was mishearing it, which is potentially one might say that love is this evolved emotional contract that you're kind of finding between this maybe this Kate and I fall in love, and now we have this thing we're no longer looking for other mates, and I'm not trying to like one up one, because we have this contract between us, and but then you start getting law involved and having people sign these contracts and stuff, and now you can kind of now that it's like this weird thing on paper, now you look through it and you can kind of find loopholes, and now this evolved emotional contract maybe isn't as necessary or powerful.
It's very interesting that you brought love in.
Yeah,
because love there are several odd things about exactly that marriage concept that you put forward. Yeah, so patriarchy evolved or emerged about 11 times on the planet, independent from each other, following similar logic, and every one of them invented the kind of marriage concept in which you are restricted, and sort of the point of it that when you would want to split up, you can't. Yeah, like just think about it. Why would we agree to a contract that is only important when we don't want to have it anymore? Yeah, and so these are invented. And why? The reason is because when you have in-laws, it extends the highly integrated part of the network. So here's something that blew my mind the first it occurs. Yeah, if you are an apple tree, You do not need
Hold on, let me think about that for a while. I'm already blown away thinking about being an apple tree.
Wait for it, because no. If you're an apple tree in blossom, and now we get to come to think about it. Yeah? A blossoming apple.
Okay.
So you're an apple tree in blossom.
Yeah.
You're not gonna check with anybody whether you should pollinate with. Yeah, you let little buzzers come around. Apple is coming. Yeah. A chimpanzee will not check with her mom who they should mate with. Yeah. Our species has introductions to parents. Why? Because we want to make sure that the cooperation between our new partner and our own family is going to work. But not only that, we have family introductions when we introduce the two families to each other. Like, how odd is that? I mean, you fall in love with Kate, and before you decide whether she's going to be the right person, you're going to check whether Kate's brother and your sister like each other. Why? No other species does this. So that is an actual moment when you are assessing the consequences on the social network structure, because you're going to have these in-laws, and the in-laws will, not only you are going to recognize each other, but your family and their family will recognize each other across. So a lot of new connections are, if you think about Romeo and Juliet, yeah? Romeo and Juliet, behaviorally perfectly. There's no evolutionary behavioral science error in it. Yeah, it's really cool actually. Yeah, what happens? There are these two teenagers, and they like each other a lot. They smell the right kind of immune compatibility. They assess each other for gene quality. Both of them look fantastic. They assess each other for future parenting compatibility, whether they're going to be good parents together. The only thing that's missing is that the families don't like each other. But they say, you know what? This is all the other, your disease burden cues are so low. Your gene quality is so high. All the other factors are so good. Well, we better just leave this whole social network, family interconnected network behind and move to that on somewhere else. And the tragedy is an accident. It's a misunderstanding. Yeah. So everything up until then works well. So we had this idea that if this is true, then we should expect that people check the compatibility of the families when they choose somebody for a long-term relationship. But not a short-term one, yeah? For a one-night stand, it doesn't matter. But for a long-term one, it matters. So that
would be fun to meet all the whole family before a one-night stand, or afterwards you give a debrief. But yeah, this is I see where you're going with this.
And we tested that.
Yeah.
In 7 languages, a big South Asian, giant European samples, 3 European samples, and a South American sample. And it turns out that everywhere, independent of gender, independent of age, and which culture you are in, everybody checks for the long-term relationship. And if you want to have another insight from you, that's something you know, think about when you choose someone and you decide it works, what do you do? How does the marriage start? A wedding.
Yeah, right. And you get the two families
and what is
together. Yeah, wedding's a gathering of the two families and
what
the two different. You have
eat
one
together,
on one side.
bonds
Yeah,
people.
Yeah.
Drink together, bonds people. Dance together, bonds people. Tell supernatural narratives about imaginary agents, bonds people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have the cheapest operationalization of the new in-law connections. So although weddings are expensive, it's much cheaper compared to individually operationalizing those new connections.
I never thought about weddings being. No one's ever made a convincing case of weddings being a bargain before. That's brilliant. Because this is, I would have. So what's so interesting about everything that you're presenting is that this is a slightly different narrative than what you'd read about in Richard Dawkins' Selfish Gene, which is just, it's as simple as we're siblings, we share half of our genes, that's why we're cooperating. Well, a cousin that we have is 1/8 related to us.
Yeah.
And then these like orphanages where like these kids end up like cooperating for life. Yeah. This is more like a byproduct of like a mental hiccup of how we recognize relatedness. Yeah. And you're saying it's more of simply a proximity thing with it.
What is interesting about it is not so.
I mean, I'm kind of muddling. These are ideas I'm trying to.
This is great. So I'm in the process of publishing this. So I think I think 8 papers out. Another 11 are almost ready already. And it's called.
Well, talk to me when you get to 12, and then maybe I'll take you seriously.
It's called the microfoundation theory, but actually it started.
It's called the.
It's called the micro. Sorry, I didn't speak like this. Yeah, it's called the microfoundations theory. Microfoundations, structural microfoundations of the society, because I couldn't think of a normal term, so now it's shortened to microfoundations. That's an awful name, but that's the only thing I have. So it all started. 2013, a friend of mine invited me to give a talk about the uniqueness of human-made choice, and it was like more than 6 months ahead. So I said yes, and then 2 weeks before the talk, I was putting together the slides, and I realized that I can't think of a single mate choice factor in humans that is not there in another animal, which was sort of a problem if your talk is on the uniqueness of the human mate choice factor. So I called her and said, Anna, can we change the title? And she said, well, no, because the posters are all up around Helsinki. And by the way, this is the largest lecture hall of Finland. Shit. So I had 2 weeks to find something unique about the human mate choice. And I was working on some kinship models. And I realized what we just discussed, that they must be checking each other out. So built a big, presented that as a question. This should be the uniqueness, but we don't have data yet. And I built this big survey experiment in the 7 languages, whatever, to test this. And what we found is that people do take into account the complementarity of the 2 families. But the reason you haven't quite seen this yet, because there was one other question that bugged me for 7-8 years that stopped me. So there was one question in which I wanted to see how much people actually allocate resources to family members based on relatedness. And so the question was that you get $1,000. It's an imaginary $1,000. It's a lottery winnings. And you decide you're going to allocate it to kids in the family. And you could choose your child and your sibling's child, your 1st-degree cousin's child, the 2nd-degree cousin's child, and the 3rd-degree cousin's child. So these are all direct relatives. You can give it to your spouse's sibling's child, your spouse's cousin's child, so they are in-laws, or you could give it to your sibling's spouse's sibling's child, your sibling's spouse's cousin's child. They're very nice because these are inverse relatedness. And what came out is that people allocated, and all of these different languages, there were different currencies, of course, locally, whatever. It was a meaningful answer. And what came out is that people allocated the resources, these $1,000 to lottery winnings, exactly by how many steps in this kin network those kids were from them. In exactly that was driving it, and including the in-laws, inverse relatedness. So you go down your child, up to your spouse, up to your spouse's mums and dads, down to the spouse's sibling, down to the child. You can just simply count these edges, and that was what drove the allocation. So I very proudly wrote a paper, Inclusive Fitness, Hamilton, the same as inclusive fitness from Hamilton. I called it a final inclusive fitness, and I actually have
no more work on this. Finished.
And I have a final as a final, not a final. A final means in-law.
Oh,
in-law inclusive fitness.
What's that word?
A final.
I've never heard it before.
F-I-N-A.
I'm not one to turn to for a big vocabulary.
I made a mistake because actually I didn't know it before I learned about kinship. So it's a jargon. And I live 200 meters from Hamilton's grave. So I had these really ridiculous things of finishing the paper, sitting next to the grave. I was very proud of myself. I sent it into some journals, and 5 reviews came back. And all the five reviews said, Tamás, you idiot. Read Dawkins' 12 misconceptions. I think it's misconception 7. So basically, if you have a choice between your own child and your sibling's child, you should give everything to your own child.
Yeah? Right.
Like it was a stupid error, which is great. But then why the hell are people allocating it exactly in that line?
Right.
So the whole microfoundations theory came from trying to understand why is this allocation. And the microfoundations theory then says kinship, not the sibling kinship. Sibling kinship is inherited, but all the other kinship is linguistic, and it's a network heuristic. Kinship is a social technology with which we track the network interconnectedness. And this is why kinship goes away when family size falls or with urbanization. Because suddenly that network is not important anymore. So we drop the second cousins, then we drop the first cousins, and then we keep the siblings because that's regulated the different inherited mechanism.
Right. Huh. I'm blown away by the marriage thing because I've always it's really I've never liked going to weddings very much, and I've just never I've just never liked the big rich. It's always seemed like a little silly and kind of awkward and stuff. And it's so interesting to think because from just a simple genetic perspective, you'd think, well, of course, if I'm vibing with Kate, I want to meet her, most proximate family. I want to meet, her. Maybe her sibling. I want to size up her parents, see if her mom's hot, maybe see if her dad's hot. This is how I'm going to determine if those genes are going to help out my genes and see what their parenting skills are. But the idea of getting together all these cousins and all these that is
have a vote for you before one night stand.
But that. The explanatory power of what you're saying makes this make a lot more sense now. That
Do you want more on this?
Of course.
So the question framing was between a one night stand and getting married to someone. And it was all a heterosexual setting because it was easier to set it up like
right.
that. And what happened was that so the hypothesis was that this is going to be the interconnectedness of the compatibility of the two families will work in the long term, in the getting married to setting, but will not be important in the one night stand, as we discussed. But one group of people assess a little bit the compatibility of the families even in a one night stand setting. Can you guess who they are?
People that are worried they're closely related or something?
Oh yeah, so Iceland. So in Iceland that would be there, but it's not a compatibility check; it's a relatedness check. But
you have me stumped.
so when you you and Kate will meet tonight.
Okay, for a one night stand,
and it doesn't quite work out. But,
okay,
then maybe you move on, and then you decide this is going to be fun to have a one night stand together. One of you going to check it out, think about the possible compatibility, and the other will not.
I'm stumped.
Mm-hmm. Women take the long-term matrix factors into account a little bit in a one-night stand setting, including this one.
Even just like going along with the minimal parental investment stuff, or
so they check out the women actually. So we saw it in the survey that women take, for women it's important even for a one-night stand setting, because not a female one-night stand, I suspect, or this data suggests, is not entirely one-night stand. It could be, there's a little chance that it's coming. Whereas male one-night stand, the data shows, is a one-night stand.
Oh, yeah. I see. So, okay. So from the like just general heteronormative female perspective,
yeah,
there it may go beyond this. Even if like the one night stand thing, okay, if it ends up being that, fine. But also probably if just on average, if a female is looking for a one night stand, she's possibly assessing more than that.
Oh, not possible. We see the data.
Definitely assessing.
Assessing a little bit, a tiny bit, yeah?
Assessing the possibility of that going.
What happens, and there's a little assessment.
Yeah.
So basically, even for one night stands, there's a tiny little assessment of, well, a little bit of the two families. Mm-hmm. And males don't do this.
That checks out. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I've spent a long time passionately trying to understand the female brain as well as I could, and I still I will die having not learned enough. But from what I know, that checks out some. Yeah, it resonates. Huh. Well, so. Now let me ask you a few things, because I'm so confused about. So why hasn't this happened in other species? Is this? Do you think this is very much related to humans' language ability? Why? Because it's. My understanding is because there's not that many species anywhere near as social and cooperative as humans are, right? And then
the eusocial insects are, you could argue that if you don't reproduce at all, but you're basically part of the body, almost like being a cell in our bodies, that's super social. But of course, difficult to compare insects to primates because they're very different kind of sociality. But kin-based cooperation needs you to figure out who the kin are. Yeah? And there are a lot of different solutions to this. Yeah? The cheapest and stupidest solution are some birds that have simply proximity-based kinship. If you bump into somebody often,
probably.
Well, it might be somebody. These are birds who then don't go very far away from the nest. Yeah, so it's not a bad guess. It's not a very precise guess, but a fairly cheap guess. Yeah, you don't have a large.
Close enough.
The problem with birds and brains, you have a small bird, a very large brain, as heavy, and you go flight, so you can.
Right.
Parrots. Well, the smart birds have to be larger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some birds are super smart, so it takes us to another question.
Corvids or something that are
corvids,
and they're pretty social.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, and then there's some other ways of you can have a genetic marker. Yeah, some corals use this. That you actually have a piece of your DNA, and you send out a piece of your DNA, which actually will be a great marker. So if another coral is nearby, if they match, there's going to be, then say, okay, hey, yeah, hello.
Yeah.
We use these genetic markers in assessing immune system compatibility. When we
Major histocompatibility.
Exactly. Exactly. When we kiss someone. Or we get really close. On YouTube, you can go to YouTube, and have you seen any of these first kiss videos?
No.
There's a fantastic set of first kiss videos. Go for the highest one with the highest count, because that was done really well. So they had some people come in and agree to go and kiss each other on the camera, and they saw each other's pictures but never met. So you go in, and then in front of you, there's a white space, and there's a camera, respectfully a bit further away, and there's another human being that you agreed to kiss for the first time. It's fascinating what happens, because people go in, and you see like this bit of the mate choice that has to do with smelling the MHC without knowing it, which is something we don't know with smell, but with checkout. You know what people do? They go, look at this, yeah? So people will go there, and then often before they kiss, they say, wait a minute. And then do a bit like this. They sample a little bit.
Like swirling the wine glass. Yeah.
Except they can't swirl the other's head. So they swirl their noses. Yeah.
Really?
And then they kiss. And then you can actually see when it doesn't work. Because some of them didn't work, and you can see that they're kissing, but it's just the pull of something is not working. I presume in this case it was the MHC, but then when it works, I mean, some of them is magic. Yeah, they come in, look into each other's eyes, they smell a little bit, they start kissing, and then two strangers in 15-20 seconds. When they stop kissing, they stand next to each other, and they're already a couple. I mean, just the speed of this is mind-boggling. So the other way of sniffing out who's related, we don't use it for relatedness. We use this for immune system compatibility. Other species, salmon, so other species use this molecule why they're using it. And then there is another way of telling who's related to you. It's a version of some of these birds' proximity. It's called development. Go ahead.
Salmon.
Okay, Salmon uses it. Uses the same molecule, but
not for social.
Not for social.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say with any other patterns, I was like, where?
What I want to say is that this is used in several different ways. Yeah. Okay. Apes, including you, figured out that the proximity is super cheap but very imprecise. The genetic bit, having a bit of your genes, is super precise but extremely expensive. Because you basically just let it out in the air. Yeah? Super expensive to produce because large molecules. Yeah,
I'm just leaking my genes everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And it's an expensive thing to produce.
Okay.
So you can have a version of the bird trick, but focused on the proximity when. So apes, including humans, have developmental proximity. So we recognize who our relatives are by being a lot together when we are kids.
Yeah.
The Westermark, Edward Westermark.
Yeah.
So this is the Westermark effect. So that is the inherited bit of kinship. And then we are the only species that can create kinship with language. So how do you know that your brother is related to you? You grew up together. How do you know that your second cousin is related to you? Your mom said so. Yeah. So we have both of these two kinship concepts. If you think about it, anthropologists murder each other over kinship, but they don't. The core is that there are these two different kind of kinships, and one doesn't go away, and is driven by the Hamilton's inclusive fitness mechanism, the Western mark, the close kinship, the development of proximity-based kinship. The other one is a network management social technology that can go away and varies dependent on what kind of network we're likely to have in a particular habitat.
It's a lot to take in. This is wonderful. I'm wondering if you could kind of share some of the we love on the show exploring some of the differences between the environment that we evolved in and kind of maybe for is not the right word, but the environment that we evolved in and our ancestors spent a long time, and then the rapid change that's happened recently. And you kind of started this episode talking about this shift that happened recently. So what are the implications of the because not only did you said 300 years ago or so that there was this drop off in fertility, and then
in France there's a bit of a debate, but let's say 200-300 years ago. Then in Western Europe, the first time the fertility was measured for all of humanity was 1960. Then it was 5.2 kids per woman, but of course a lot of those children died. So it's about 3, let's say, depending on what age, but let's say 3.8 kids that grew to adulthood. So that was the period of extremely rapid population growth. And now, this year, is 2.6. So it's gone down in 60 years, it's gone down from 5.2 to 2.6. And almost every society on the planet is somewhere on this transition curve. The last is South Korea, where the number of children per woman, an average woman, is already less than 1.
Wow. And so this has shifted these networks quite a bit from these kind of more stable given relatedness networks to now you're in a metropolitan area, you're in a city you're choosing your networks, but they don't necessarily which I like that. I like the getting to choose the people in the network. But I had never, before meeting you, considered the idea of also those people that you choose needing to be connected to one another for it to be a more stable network.
Yeah. And there's a host of consequences to this. So I think we can tell a new story around what fake news is. We can tell a new story about small worlds, that suddenly the world seems to be a different shape. And we also have a new question. So this is the first time that we can meaningfully ask how to wire 7.8 billion individuals of a species around the planet. If you think about it, our species never been in this. We couldn't have possibly asked this question any time up until like a decade ago, and there's no other species for this can be meaningfully asked. So as far as we know, the only time in the universe that this question emerges, and with that a problem emerges, is now for our species. So, and 7.8 billion people is a lot of people, yeah. So my favorite, I'll tell you how I think about it, and you can cut it up because if it's too long. But the way I think about it is that Madonna, at her, I mean, she had many heights, yeah, but she had her largest concert in Paris, yeah, when she had 140,000 people, yeah. So, I mean, we tend to have a few hundred social connections, yeah. So each one of us in our lives probably, even with shifting friendships, will not have more than 1,500 say, people. Yeah, so this is 100 times more. You'd have to have 100 people with all the people they ever have a meaningful social connection, and not overlapping, to fill that stadium. 140,000 people. Yeah, so she gave that concert. Reagan was the head of the Soviet Union, the United States, this country. Gorbachev was the head of the Soviet Union. Yeah, imagine that she would give the same concert again next day. 140,000 people, a lot of people, and the day after, until the wall comes down that separated us. I grew up in Hungary, yeah? And the day after, and then Clinton gets elected. And even the day after Clinton gets elected, there's another concert. 9/11, the day before 9/11, there's a concert on that day, and there's a concert the day after, up until today. Another concert every night, 140,000 people, and tomorrow. And the day before you die, and the day you die, the day my kids die, the day my grandkids die, the day my grandkids die, every night a different 140,000 people until the middle of summer, 2151. That's how many people there are on the planet.
Yeah, that's and now we actually can connect.
We can ask the
So
question
many
how
of
to
them.
wire them, how to wire ourselves. We can meaningfully ask this.
Yeah.
And one answer was coming from this with manipulation, capturing our friendship-making process, and for a political goal. So now we're gradually seeing a rise of separate social networks, separate truth systems. I mean, increasingly the conservative right in Turkey has more to do with the conservative right in Mexico than with the Turkish left. Yeah,
That's interesting.
That's one way of its emerging, a globally split social network with separate truth systems.
Right.
Yeah, but this is not necessarily the only way.
Well, so you were kind of saying early on that as these new systems that aren't as connected take off, that allows for a lot more cheating. If Kate and I don't know each other, it allows for a little more cheating, a little more need for laws, that sort of thing ad infinitum, until you get to nearly 8 billion people. So, I mean, what does that mean for? How do you connect it? Does that mean more and more of a need for unified, like a global policy or something like that? Does that mean that crime is just going to keep on increasing and there's not much to be done about it, even though crime seems to be going down?
Yeah, I mean, the crime is going down because we figured out tricks in which our friendship networks can be highly connected. One obvious trick is that we choose our friends who are very similar to us. And if they choose all our friends choose each other who are very similar, we will have these similar circles. That's one trick. Another one is legal systems emerge, and they reduce crime. We don't. It's not a real kind of cooperation, but with that, if they're efficient, they're going to work. But global governance, the need for global governance, doesn't come from this possibility of wiring the 8 billion people. It comes from the fuck-ups that we have right now, yeah? So if we are not going to do anything, the biosphere is it's already in the process of collapsing, yeah? Climate change is the easy problem because we know more or less what to do. We just haven't got our shit together to do it. Yeah? With the collapsing biosphere, we don't even quite know what to do. And we are in the process of it. We are in the process of one of the 6 largest collapse of life in the history of life, but which is now in the public domain, so we discuss it. What we are not discussing is that this is also by far, the current collapse is by far the fastest collapse. So if you compare the current collapse's speed to the fastest collapse of the biosphere in the history of life, it's about 1,000 times faster. So 1,000 times faster is a fighter jet. How much faster a fighter jet is flying compared to mosquito?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's so. If you are imagine that you're in the park, and the toddler starts walking to you, and the other end of the park is walking towards you with a knife, yeah? And the guys there will stab you, yeah? Imagine that toddler is a fighter jet, yeah?
Yeah, right.
Flying towards you. So we should be panicking every day. Our kids get it, yeah? Kids are saying they are panicking about this, yeah? We're just too comfortable in our ways. We should be panicking. And there's a bunch of other, that we haven't quite figured out what we do with the global inequality, where we always talk about global inequality as if it was among countries. But the global society's inequality is, if you see one global society, the whole thing, is that it's something that these apes that we are will not live by. I mean, if you start putting together all the people who are the wealthiest people on the planet, from the wealthiest, the second wealthiest, up until they own half of everything, they fit in the city bus. Yeah? They own half of everything. All the rest of us, in a queue of city buses, that traffic jam would go around the planet 18 times. And those guys who own the other half fit. We are apes. The only reason there's no global revolution is that we haven't processed this. Yeah? But
yeah.
Like it's way higher than a place where there's not going to be a revolution. Yeah?
Yeah.
So there are a host of things that require global governance. Maybe with the right kind of wiring, it will be possible to generate collective action among this ridiculous large number of people. Yeah.
It's quite a task. I mean, if someone were to ask me, what do you do about this? I would say, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, I can think of like small things to start. I'd be like, well, you just try to get the word out there and inform people. And if you just explained this to people in the right way, then they start to get it. And then if they get it, they'll start cooperating around this logic and this irrational idea. But I mean, we just got like a very salient stress test with COVID. And I mean, I saw up close exactly how people behaved, and the lack of, there was some coordinated effort and some cooperation and things, but I don't think it was I don't think it was like, oh, look, everyone's just going to start cooperating now because they all see this unified goal. And I can't think of a single threat or opportunity that would unify $8 billion or 8 billion people rather.
I slightly disagree on the COVID point.
You think people cooperated quite a bit? I mean, I think I was pretty hopeful in the beginning. I saw some cooperation in the beginning and things, and I don't know.
So within a month, a month and a half,
yeah,
the virus was sequenced.
That's true.
And with all the new technologies, vaccines were created. 70 plus labs around the planet, different vaccines with completely new technologies. the cooperation of computers and computer chips and human brains, computer chip groups and human brain groups, because a lot of the modeling was on computer chips. I think more than 100,000 scientific papers. So that was, actually it gives a lot of hope, because within, I think the first vaccine tests in Oxford were early September. And the vaccine mutated probably in November. In 10 months, people got vaccinated. We sort of got back to more or less to our normal lives with damage. And of course we learned a lot about some problems of cooperation. But if you sort of step back a little bit, this was remarkable. I mean, we humans really rock. Yeah, I mean, there's no other species can come anywhere near. And actually, nowhere in human history up until, because if you think what was needed, yeah? You needed understanding the DNA. Rosalind Franklin and her colleagues, 1953, yeah? Like, not that long ago, yeah? We needed to have large computers, yeah? They're just the kind of computers that could calculate this, just very recent, yeah? We need to understand the DNA, human DNA technology, yeah? 20 years ago, yeah? This is the first time that this kind of cooperation was really possible. And I think we, as in our species, came off with, I mean, let's say, almost flying colors, A-.
A-? Yeah,
A-.
You gave people an A-.
I give the species A-.
The species A-.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
to me, it sounds like you're talking about a very, very, very small percentage of people that innovated solutions that were, in my view, resisted against by a huge, significant portion of. I think the booster has about a 9-10% uptake or something like that in this country. Should be people lined around the block theoretically for a solution like that.
So that goes back to this question about splitting networks and splitting truth systems, knowledge systems.
Yeah.
So I think that highlights another this problem. It highlights the question of wiring. Yeah, because when we have communities, our communities automatically will create knowledge systems, and so we now have some political manipulators, global level political manipulators that hijack this ability of wiring. Hijack. So if you think about it within this framework, what is a fake news? Yeah. So what happens is that when I live in a society in which I'm surrounded by friends, so I can choose them or lose them, but I need to be chosen as well. So if that friendship is based on similarity, I need to signal to my friends what my type is. Yeah?
Right.
There's the news industry, formerly known as the news industry. Now, type marker provides service will bombard me with this incredibly large number of news items that all of them are markers, type markers. Yeah. So I now suddenly I can show here's my news. Here's what I worry about. Here's what I agree with. And there, social media is another industry which allows me to signal these types. Yeah. So suddenly I am constantly given some type markers, and on social media I can signal this. 10 years ago, the people were not sharing news items. They were sharing clothing, fashion items. Yeah. So you would go to Facebook 10 years ago, for instance, there was a big global wave of showing your running shoes or your basketball shoes as your profile picture. Yeah, you're signaling something, and this process was then hijacked by these political manipulators that were able to give news items as a signal to your type within one side. Yeah. So and if you want to see this, you can ask yourself, what are the fake news? What kind of fake news have you been spreading? Yeah, because it's very easy to tell, oh, you guys are spreading fake news, because you have been spreading. Yeah, I regularly catch myself in fake news. Yeah, so for instance, a couple of years ago, the Amazonas was the forest in Amazonas was on fire. Yeah, the rainforest was, and everywhere I shared news on Facebook to my friends. The rainforest is on fire. Yeah, because I'm the kind of guy who really worries about this. Yeah. And I didn't quite stop to think, because I worked in rainforests. They're wet. What's happening here? And until one of my colleagues who works on ecological modeling in Oxford pulled me aside and a bit embarrassedly said, you know that this is just a regular thing. It's not. And I was a little embarrassed. And then I shared it again. By accident. Yeah. By accident, because I'm the kind of guy who shares this.
Right.
Yeah. And we are full of this all the time. So if I ask you, okay, what did Donald Trump get right? And people's instinct is, what's your instinct? What did he get right?
I mean, I enjoyed his promotion of vaccines.
Right.
Yeah. And that'll be it. I mean, I'm sure there are other things that he got right along the way, and I have a hard time seeing them.
Middle East peace has been something president after president of this country broke their teeth in. Israel now has diplomatic relationships with a host of Middle Eastern countries, including Saudi Arabia, including the Emirates.
And I'm not one for world affairs. I'm not particularly knowledgeable about world affairs, but were things declining in Middle East relations before Trump took office, or were they moving toward cooperation already?
There is both sides thought of each other very lowly, and the kind of peace that should be there was not achieved. There's a host of reasons. I mean, they're both it's completely different. I mean, if you want to see somewhere where the knowledge system, the truth system is completely opposing, it's one of those places. Yeah. The reason I brought this up because it is one of the ways we can search ourselves for fake news is that we identify our side.
Right.
Our side often has somebody who really dislike on the other side. We say, okay, and we ask ourselves, so what is it that they got right? Yeah. So the exercise itself, because we have the instinct to say nothing.
Yeah.
And look at you like, are you a traitor?
Yeah.
Are you going to traitor?
Yeah, right.
And no, this is an exercise to realize that this process is in all of us. Yeah. So that's one of, anyway, so there's a long-winded answer to your global governance.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. So what as we wrap up, so I gave you my predicament, which is I don't have a ready solution for how to wire up 8 billion people and get them to cooperate. I think that I wouldn't give the COVID a response an A- from the way that I perceived it, but and I guess I have less of a my hope is in some like social innovations that take place much in the way that in behavioral economics was able to was able to factor in human factors into our assessment of economics. I think that needs to that human factors need to be understood better in terms of creating solutions to climate change, creating solutions to overpopulation, all of these things. And I think that's the trickiest. I think figuring out a vaccine, I think figuring out solutions for innovating better solar panels or nuclear power plants or something like that. I think that all that's a piece of cake. I think getting humans to wire together and cooperate together is far more challenging than all of those other challenges.
I agree.
And you have an idea of how we wire together?
No. We're messing around. So I have an instinct about that this kind of wiring cannot be centrally organized. So so I think the question itself is already interesting. That we have these 8 billion people, soon 8 billion people. How do you wire them? Because there's a possibility to wire them. But people are not going to be friends with each other because some kind of global government told them to do this.
Right.
But we are actually community living and community generating apes. And we sort of, in these places, we forgot how to do it. So I don't know how to do it, but the step that maybe we could have is to have new rituals. So with the decline of traditional supernatural narratives with imaginary agents, we also sort of often leave behind the rituals that were associated with these different strains of religions. And those rituals were very important because very often they were the ones that created the community. So if you want to have some kind of low-level wiring, maybe one way to approach it is to design some kind of ritual that's sort of the species ritual. I'm messing around with one ritual, yeah? This is a very simple ritual and it's still like a work in progress, but it seems to, it's a little ritual, it's a food share. It's what you do before you sit down at a table and eat food. And the current version of the ritual is everybody turns we go around and we say a few words why this is important for us, why this food is important for us. We can try it tonight when we go out, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we all talk about it, a few words, why it's important for us. And then before we get down to eating, in pairwise, we turn into each other, look into each other's eyes for 10 seconds. And then we say to each other, first maybe in a common language, and then in our own language, saying that, befogadlak, I take you in. So I say it in our common language, I take you in. And then I say in my own language, befogadlak. And then you say the same thing. Maybe you could try now. Befogadlak. But say
I take you in.
Keep the eye contact, yeah? I take you in, yeah? And then this little thing of going around, talking a little bit about food, and then having this tiny, tiny little ritual, it creates an instant, it reinvents food sharing, communal food sharing, but in a way that it can be then practiced, because we have a little bit of a supernatural narrative, because we often tell how important this food is, and we sort of create mini superheroes in them, yeah?
Right.
Often we are the superheroes in them, yeah, or somebody around us. And then we have a bond based on an oxytocin-based. This releases oxytocin. There's the mechanism, yeah. And then if you do this around the table, then when we eat, it's going to be a different meal. And then people will stay around, and in my observation, often people sing something afterwards. So sort of this is almost a key. So this is where it is so far, but it's very low level. And I'm not quite sure how to do it high, how to scale it. But maybe one way to scale it is to have a holiday, which is a species level holiday, when we all do this. And just see where it goes. So I don't know how to wire, but maybe that would be like Yeah, somewhere. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm interested. I mean, I've been I've been trying to start a cult for a while, and so I think
What kind of cult?
Well, my other show, Mind Under Matter, it's just it's a very silly cult. We just keep on adding like little things to we have like little Pavlovian things that we do at the end of a episode and ring a bell and stuff, and we have like silly cloaks that we wear sometimes, and now people are like getting tattoos and stuff, and it's all silly because we usually like mock most cult-like behavior, but ours is like just predicated on like, wouldn't it just be silly to pretend we're a cult, and just like it's a cult of just pretending to be a cult without actually like believing any of the things, but unifying around the silliness of it all.
So we are the kind of apes that have all these social buttons.
Yeah.
I wonder whether it's impossible to pretend to be a cult, because a lot of it is very superficial. So if you do the right kind of things, all of those right kind of things will push the button. Yeah. And then you are caught.
Yeah. But I want
supernatural narrative is that
you pretend to be. Exactly. But that's what I'm going for. It's the cult of fake cult.
Exactly.
And but then we would take the fakeness and the silliness of it very, very, very seriously. Yeah.
Cool. Do you have cult gatherings?
We now have that's the festival that I just put together was the Mind Under Matter Camp Out Festival, and we had like rituals. So we built a outhouse in the middle of the camping field. There was porta potties and everything else, but we built a huge wood together as a community. And then at the end of the festival, we burnt it with a flamethrower, actually, and yeah, we have lots of like weird little. They just happen over time. Like once in a while, we'll just like pick up on something silly, and then we're like, oh, we're integrating that now into a part of our community thing, like little things that we call each other and stuff. So I've always been like for finding ridiculous ways of like a way of bonding without dogma, but with like the dogma being silliness and not taking itself overly seriously. Like, can you believe we're doing this kind of silliness? So, but I mean, I'm a long ways from being in danger of any kind of massive popularity or something taking off. So who knows? Oh, thank you so much. You as well, Tamás.
No.
Thank you so much. I take you in. I take you guys in. Thank you all. Such wonderful listeners and viewers for being such smart, interesting, curious people, and we'll see you next week.